Well, that's all she wrote for the Pirates on this night, and she kind of wrote that song very early in this one. The Pirates lose 11-1 to the Dodgers as the series gets evened up. Pittsburgh now 12-17 on the year. This is your Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. So a night off from the Penguins leading their series with the Rangers in the first round, and the flip side of Pittsburgh sports with the Pirates losing a game. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I will be joined by James Santelli, resident Pirate fan, Pirate aficionado, and has spent some time in LA in his life. So we're going to have him. I don't see I do actually see a Dodgers hat behind him. So we'll we'll have that. That's a nice setup there you have with the Dodgers and Pirates next to each other for this series. But as I said, the Pirates do lose this one 11-1. So James, obviously the offense didn't show up in this game. It actually has shown up a lot in recent games, maybe more so than some people expected this year. And you even go to game one of this series where the Pirates were able to get the victory 5-1, obviously a lot better of a pitching performance as well. Do you chalk this game up as an anomaly? Do you chalk this game up as maybe game one was more of an anomaly because you're facing a Dodgers team with a vaunted offense and Mookie Betts and company and able to get it going in this game and not in that game? Or what's your thought process here after this 11-1 trouncing to LA?
Yeah, yesterday was definitely more of the anomaly. Tonight's game, losing 11-1 is about more what you would expect from the juggernaut Dodgers facing the, let's face it, lowly Pirates. A complete switch in terms of hits as well. The Pirates tied their season high with 15 hits over 8 innings Monday night, and then the Dodgers come right back with 15 hits tonight against the Pirates, and just really from the get-go got after Bryce Wilson and did not let up. I mean, the Dodgers get what they pay for, right? That they're still the team with the best record in baseball, and they really showed it tonight.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh only 4 hits in this game. So again, conversely, 1 run off 4 hits for the Pirates. Their offense did not obviously show up in this game. Nothing could have been doing for the Pirates in this one. Again, losing 11-1 here, like Asti, James Santelli. And as I go into a little bit of this Pirates offense before we get to Wilson on the mound, what's your concern factor? Because the one player that jumps out, even when the offense is able to produce and has been scoring runs, and you've seen 5, 7, 8 plus runs, even 10 runs in some of these games recently, the Pirates offense has put some runs on the board. They kind of have set into this conventional lineup a little bit with Vogelbach in the cleanup role and then Hayes before him, etc. With Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds now hitting 238 in the number 2 spot in the order. That is the spot that is supposed to be owned by the best hitter on the team. Obviously, he's somebody that some maybe think should be around for the future. That's still kind of murky waters. They get 2 more years. You don't know the future with him, though. But it's been an all-star year to not at all during the COVID year, which was way down, and then again picking it up last season for him. Concern factor to Brian Reynolds picking it up, and how important is that for the Pirates in terms of respectability and setting this lineup up? Obviously, you're not expecting to win the pennant this year if you're Pittsburgh, like maybe LA is, of course, every year. But it's been a bit of a down season so far for Brian Reynolds, despite it being an early year so far.
It has, but my concern factor is still low for Brian Reynolds. The struggles really came in the month of April. He had an up and down sort of month, ended it under the Mendoza line, under 200. OPS was under 600, so it was certainly not the offensive month that you would have hoped for coming out of the 2-year, I hate to call it contract extension, because it really didn't extend his years of control, but the guaranteed money that he got. However, since then, he's been turning it up a little bit. He's got his average back over the 200 mark, has added more than 100 points of OPS, got another hit tonight, so I think that's 7 of 8 games in the month of May where he's hit safely. So he'll be fine. I really don't have concerns for Brian Reynolds here. He's always had the bat at the major league level here in Pittsburgh. He always finds a way and sometimes gets really into a groove. And really, you see both the hitting for average and the power from Reynolds, the kind of power that, has him as among extra base hits leaders when he's really got it turned on, because he can get it into the gap, get you some doubles and some triples. So not really concerned there. It's just there's not too much else helping there in the lineup. You mentioned Daniel Vogelbach. He's been amazing. I mean, he's been a revelation. What you expected from Daniel Vogelbach was sort of empty power, a guy who would maybe hit around 200, give you a lot of home runs, but not much more. Instead, he's been great all around. He's been hitting the ball to all fields, hitting for power and for average.
Yeah.
Ke'Bryan Hayes finally, turning it on himself. He looks like he's locked in. I mean, based on last night and tonight, the 15 hits the Pirates got yesterday were not little, dribblers, dink and dunk, ground ball. No, they were hitting the ball hard. They hit Julio Urias last night, more hits than Urias has allowed in any other start in his career. So you can see that guys like Hayes are locked in. Ben Gamel, he looked particularly good barreling up the ball last night. I think he's in a good spot.
Right. Leading off for the Pirates kind of changed their lineup a little bit with his emergence as well.
And he's done well. But beyond those four guys, what do you have? I mean, really, you can make an argument for Michael Chavis. He's shown flashes. He's shown that he can be productive and that he has position flexibility.
Right.
But he's not really your everyday guy. So what do you where does the real offense in the bottom half of the order come? If you're seeing an offense that can produce and get guys on base in the top half of the order, what about the bottom half of the order?
Yeah, and that goes into the whole kind of now underground debate that's still going on that went on before the season of O'Neal Cruz and what do you do and when do you see him and hit a home run recently, but it's not been that great for him this year so far either. But Ryan Reynolds, hit in this game, 1 out of the 4 for the Pirates, 2 yesterday, 1 before, 2 before that. So he has started to turn it around a little bit. You're kind of getting from Hayes what you would expect to get from Hayes now that you didn't the last couple of years due to injury. And then you mentioned Vogelbach. It is an interesting, he's kind of an anomaly just in general in his career, because I actually have had guests on this same postgame show, and they argue that they didn't know why fans were expecting him to kind of be the Matt Stairs comparison that you're bringing up of no average and all the home runs, because technically he only did that 1 year of his career a few years ago with the 31 bombs with the Mariners and 90 plus RBI with a minimal average. And other years he was giving you this weird 270-pound beer belly man that somehow has become a slap hitter and given you, a 400 on base percentage, which is why he was leading off to start the season. So you wouldn't know what he does by looking at him, but yes, he has been productive in a way for what they brought him on. And I can't think of surprise, only hitting 244, but he's getting on base when he needs to, and now kind of stabilized the cleanup role there. James Santelli joining me here, our Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on PSL. Hit that subscribe button. You can catch more of these, whether it be baseball, hockey, or whatever the sport. And your Pirates do lose this one 11-1. So they do now lose 1 to the Dodgers after beating LA in game 1 of this series, and you will have a quick turnaround in an afternoon game to kind of figure things out for this series if they could oddly steal a series to the powerhouse Dodgers, who James mentioned are looking for yet another pennant and World Series title. Now, I do have to get to the mound, James, and while the offense has been better than some expected, even in these losses, not in this game, but even better than expected overall this year, I guess everyone kind of could say, Bryce Wilson, 0-1 on the year entering this game, and then this game was just rough. 6 earned runs of 8 hits, didn't even get through 3. This is kind of old school Pirates of a couple years ago where they just couldn't even get the starter anywhere near a few innings into this game. Obviously, you can't say he's someone they expected to rely on entering the year by any means, but obviously this also was a pretty bad start. How do you parse this for him, though? Because for anybody who doesn't know about Bryce Wilson, he actually had decent outings prior to this appearance. He's been a guy out of the pen. He's been a guy who's had starting roles in the past. This has by far been his worst outing of the year, but it was really, really bad. So does it make you hesitant to go back to him? What are your thoughts on him to this point? Because the prior outing was 3 runs off only allowing, he allowed half of these runs in his prior outing, literally.
Well, I mean, let's make sure we see Bryce Wilson for what he is. This is not a guy who really should be in a major league rotation in the classic sense. Right. And really, they're not using him that way. The most innings he's thrown in any start this season has been 4 1/3. I mean, that's been the case with several Pirate starters who as we noted, a lot of them haven't gotten to the 5-inning mark. But let's put a pin in that just to say that whether he's going to be starting or maybe in a long relief role or just in the swingman role, all they're really expecting from Bryce Wilson is 3 or 4 innings, kind of get through, don't need to overpower guys, but you need to make sure that you're not, letting too many guys on base, not letting the walks compared to the strikeouts get too high. And that has not really been Bryce Wilson. He came into the game with just 16 strikeouts, 9 walks. Tonight he got some strikeouts, lowered the walks, but everybody was teeing off on him. Now it's the Dodgers. The Dodgers lineup is built to tee up on anyone. You've got maybe the deepest lineup that we've seen for any team in quite some time. I can't even think of a team in recent memory that is more stacked top to bottom and on the bench than the Dodgers are. So are we throwing Bryce Wilson under the bus? No, not necessarily, because if you're going to have your worst start of the season, it's going to be with them. But it's just the reality of this is who this guy is. It's not a pure starter. It's not a guy who would be in a rotation for most teams. It's somebody that you're hoping on any given night can give you 4 quality innings and then pass the ball along to the bullpen and hopefully string together a couple wins as long as he is coming up every 5th day.
Yeah, and to your point there, and to the defense of Bryce Wilson, I guess, prior to seeing the Dodgers, he kind of was doing what you're saying was asked of him. 3-4 innings, maybe allow 1 or 2 runs. The 3 runs he has been allowing in the other quote-unquote bad starts, not all of them were even earned. So
and doing them in relief, right. Kind of bring him in the 3rd or the 4th inning, but doing them against some not great lineups. I mean, the Tigers are not a great lineup. The Milwaukee Brewers, their strength comes from their pitching, their fielding, not from the offense necessarily. And so it's going to be a case of we're going to get into July and August, and you're going to need to eat up some innings against the more quality lineups than the Detroit Tigers or the Chicago Cubs. And where's Bryce Wilson going to be? Is he going to be more of the guy who was in the playoffs for the Braves, that was actually in a playoff rotation for the Atlanta Braves, or is he just kind of a quad A guy who is going to be maybe just somebody that you need to throw in long relief? If the Pirates have any hope of giving enough on the pitching side to give themselves chances to win in the summertime, you've got to get more quality from Bryce Wilson and guys of his ilk to stand any chance.
Yeah, you do kind of need to patch it together in terms of who's going to start these games in the starting rotation, because they obviously are void of an ace, and even those who maybe they think could be the 1 or the 2, and Mitch Keller with hype and JT Brubaker, et cetera, they're not nearly giving you enough to believe in that. There's nobody on this rotation that's going to make you think, okay, when he pitches and when he takes the mound, this is a victory, or at least this is a 4 or 5 inning comfortable outing to open up the game. That's not even guaranteed either. So it's kind of
we only finally got one yesterday with Jose Quintana, getting the first Pirates starting pitcher to get a win as a starter, and it took them until their 28th game. That's 1/6 of the way into the season before you got a starting pitcher.
That's ridiculous.
Now, grant you, some of that is by design. Derek Shelton, to his credit, has been willing to break the mold and say, I'm going to go with an opener for this. I'm going to only let this starter see the lineup 2 times through
and
the order.
And he said this, he's been open with this too. This isn't even analysis. He's made this clear. This is what he's doing. Yeah.
And that's to his credit. When you don't have the deepest well of pitching talent in the world, and it's more, emphasized into the bullpen, and you've got guys like David Bednar and Will Crow and Dylan Peters who've shown that they can get outs out of the bullpen, then it behooves you to use your pitching staff in sort of non-traditional ways, not have a set traditional closer, play the matchups, play your best pitchers in the highest leverage situation. I'm glad that Derek Shelton's doing that. It does lead, though, to situations like we have, which is you get a full month of the way through the season before you actually get a starting pitcher getting a win. That's going to be just the way, the cost of doing business, I guess, when you're doing things this way.
Yeah, and that's kind of also the new era of baseball, whether it be the Pirates or not. It's very rare for a pitcher to go as deep as they were in years back. And we've seen a future Hall of Famer get taken out in the midst of a perfect game this year. So, and that can happen. And then if you're going to be that era of baseball and you're the Pirates, where you're void of somebody that you're truly confident in, that's going to clearly compound to where you're just going to be throwing darts and doing different things. So you're going to see relievers starting. You're going to have different things like this occur. However, up to this point, it hadn't been as bad as, I guess, this in terms of this patchwork rotation, but it was the Dodgers they're seeing. And for a bad team, let's face it, for a bad team, the Pirates have actually not been that bad offensively overall and have not been nearly that bad through the bullpen. So it has been the starters that have been the issues, but they're trying to figure things out. James Santelli and Mike Asti here. The Pirates do lose 11-1. They now have evened up this series with that loss. So tomorrow's afternoon game will try to decide things here against the Dodgers. And that then will pivot me to that game there, James. What do you expect out of the lineup possibly in that game? Because Shelton has also been pretty prone to maybe shaking things up. And Vogelbach, for example, has kind of rested. I don't know if it's his size or what it is with the games that are that quick of a turnaround. You're looking from, even with the 6:30 start times for some of these earlier in the year, generally speaking, the next day being a noon, they've kind of switched things up lineup wise. Anything that you expect changing from this lineup, also with the idea that they could actually win this series with a victory, and that actually is a possibility that they may care about?
I mean, with the obvious point of a catcher coming off from a day game after a night game, which is unfortunate because Michael Perez was coming off 2 games in a row before tonight of hitting home runs in back-to-back games.
You imagine that's happening, right?
Probably. But really the interest for me is what they do with Jack Swinski and Cole Tucker, because we saw Cole Tucker in the lineup at second instead of Michael Chavis. And it really is of interest to me how they use him through to maybe, mid-June, when we're talking about Super 2 deadline and starting to see O'Neal Cruz come up or Rodolfo Castro come up and take a spot that may belong to Cole Tucker. Is he going to get one last gasp of playing every day? And if so, you might see him in the lineup tomorrow. But beyond that, I mean, there's really not too much else to change. They just had to put Jake Marisnick on the injured list and, called up a pitcher, called up Max Granick to take his spot. So that's one less position player that you have. You kind of have to stick with what you've had with Gamble in left, Reynolds in center, Sawinski in right. You can't do too much in terms of machinations from a day game after a night game, just because you don't really have too many pieces there to work with.
Yeah, I mean, what they did earlier in the year at times was probably what Pirate fans would not want to see, because I guess it could be argued to be punting the series, where they would rest either a Hayes or a Reynolds in those situations. Obviously, they think the future of Hayes and maybe of Reynolds, but that isn't really what you probably would want to see in a chance to win a series against the Dodgers. And as you mentioned, that is your lineup. That is what you need in the field. That's your crew. So you're pretty top heavy. If you're resting a guy, then it's not like putting a different lineup together for a day game after a night game. It is just giving a rest to somebody, and the backup goes in, and you have significantly less of a chance to win the game. So that's the other option that I wouldn't be shocked. But
and I hate to dwell on Cole Tucker, but he just hasn't brought it at the plate so far this season. Even when he's gotten on base, there's been no power.
175.
I really hope that Josh Van Meter is nothing against him personally, but I hope he's not a Pirate too much longer, because there's just no there. Yeah. He can play out in the field, and he is sort of maybe the prototypical day game after a night game guy, where here's just a guy that you have and you need to fill a spot. And so here's Josh Van Meter, which literally the Pirates did. They needed a guy when they got to the end of spring training. And so they acquired him, I think, from the Arizona Diamondbacks to say, all right, well, here's the spot to fill on the roster. It's a tough state of affairs when you have to play a team that, like the Dodgers, that is so completely built, and they have everything that they need. They are the complete package. Right. And you, as the Pirates, are forced to, as Clint Hurdle used to put it, put together with duct tape, chicken wire, and spit on some days.
Yeah, to put it perfectly for those maybe casual fans in terms of the Dodgers being so stacked this year, maybe even more than recent years in terms of pennant years and winning a World Series a couple years ago, the Dodgers basically have a lineup that is put together of the recent World Series championship team rosters of multiple teams. So you're adding Freddie Freeman to a Dodgers team that basically already been a championship caliber team, and it's all stars all across the board, and it's unbelievable.
It's all stars and it's MVP. I mean,
right,
you have a guy in Cody Bellinger. He was hitting 6th tonight, but he's a former MVP, and he's hit 7th a lot in this order.
Right.
You have Austin Barnes behind the plate. He has an 870 OPS. He's a very good hitter from behind the plate. He was hitting 9th. He's their 9th hitter. The Dodgers have put together what has been in NBA terms a super team.
Yeah, and it's a super team to say the least. They've had a super team. This is a super team extra.
Plus, yeah. It's like Disney Plus, you now have Super Team Plus.
Right. This is more than that because you're looking at Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Turner. Yeah, right. So
and we haven't even mentioned a pitching staff that's had the best ERA in baseball. So,
which is, of course, would help to lead them to actually having so much postseason success. And you mentioned Bellinger too. Bellinger has accomplished more in his still relatively young career in terms of accomplishments and trophies and things like that, in terms of LCS MVP, World Series, pennant wins, MVP, Silver Slugger, Gold Glove, etc., than Hall of Famers had in their entire career. So, I mean, in terms of what's on the mantle and in the trophy case, it's everything. He could quit now and he's literally accomplished everything in the sport. And he's, again, hitting at the bottom half of this lineup right now, still in the midst of his prime. So that does show you how great the Dodgers are here. James Santelli, Mike Asti, as we close up shop here on this edition of Pittsburgh Postgame here, our Pirates edition. The Pirates do lose this one. And just sticking on the Dodgers here as we close with maybe this question, and it's pretty clear this Dodgers team is stacked. They did this for one reason. They're buying another team, but hey, it's keeping up with the Joneses. It is the system right now. So don't hate the player, hate the game, potentially, if you're going to be mad at the Dodgers here. You've been able to see the Dodgers now for a couple games in terms of Pirate fans. One was maybe the worst effort the Dodgers put up all season long. That was a victory for Pittsburgh. And this is the effort you expect from the Dodgers, even without their best pitcher, a dominant performance, doing just enough on the mound. They're able to stabilize. They hold the Pirates together. And then a lineup that just opens a can, basically, against a team that they should. Is this Dodgers team the team to beat? What's the weakness of this Dodgers team if they would not win a championship? Because as much as they're loaded and people are going to say, well, how could you ask that? Of course, they're a favorite to win a ring. They only have won one since 1988. So they certainly have had the pennants and they've had deep runs, but it has not always led to a championship. And that was a COVID year. So what could hold this team back? And are they the favorites right now looking at this roster?
Oh, they're absolutely the favorite for all of the reasons that we laid out and more. Yeah. I think it was brought up last night when the Dodgers almost got shut out that they haven't been shut out in something like 57 or 58 straight games dating back to last season. So not only is it a talented team, it's a talented team that just does not let up. I mean, they do not have bad days. I don't know if there's particularly an Achilles heel for the Dodgers. I mean, they are not only great hitters at the plate,
they're not on paper
all throughout the lineup.
Right.
They make life tough for opposing teams on the base pass as well.
Yeah,
you could maybe say defense was a weakness, but then you get Freddie Freeman, a great defensive first baseman, and Trey Turner, a great defensive shortstop. So really, the only thing that is standing in their way is that they are in a division that is very talented. You've got an incredibly talented Padres team that is finally starting to put it together. And you've got a Giants team that did win more games than the Dodgers did last year and did win the division and forced the Dodgers into that wild card game. So really, it's less about any flaw that the Dodgers have particularly, and just that they are in a division where they've got two teams that are going to be gunning for them and that have the artillery and have the talent available to be able to do so. But beyond that, they are still my most likely pick to win the World Series. Certainly to come out of the National League, you can kind of say out of the American League, you can look at the Astros as an AL team right now. But, for the most part, the Dodgers are a team that have been built and rebuilt to win the World Series. And so here they are. They're kind of proving it now. Nothing I've seen from them so far this season would convince me otherwise of them being the favorite.
Yeah, unless injuries happen to, say, Kershaw, and that lingers, unless something happens to maybe their starting rotation, but they have so much depth all the way around. So yeah, on paper, they are the clear favorite. They could easily do it again. And they've always had the pesky Giants kind of right near them and kind of making it difficult on them. You mentioned having actually a better record a season ago, but now you do factor in the Padres. It's maybe arguably a tougher West than they've even had to deal with the past 5, 6, 7 years, where they have been consistently a favorite and NLCS at minimum, etc. So this might even be the toughest road, but they also do have the strongest lineup they put up the last several years as well, which is saying something.
And one last point on the Dodgers lineup, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but already this is a team that leads baseball in run scoring, more than 5 runs a game. And not everybody has been at their best. I mean, coming out of tonight's game, just in terms of OPS, let's use Mookie Betts, 761 OPS. He's a former MVP. He can do better than that. Trey Turner, 678. He is almost MVP level. He can definitely do better than that. Josh Turner, Max Muncy, both guys that are hitting below their levels, although Turner definitely turned it on tonight with a 4-for-5 night. They're, going to be on the upswing. So you're talking about a team that is already Josh Turner. I'm thinking country music. Good Lord.
Yeah, there's a lot of Turners. It is confusing. He actually looks like he would be a country star, to be honest with you.
He could, with the beard, with the red beard and everything else.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so you've got extreme power that can come from Max Muncy and Justin Turner there in kind of the 5 or 6 spots. So when they turn it on, the best gets better. And
because I mean, they are obviously a star-studded team and a great team, and a team that's even winning now and showing clearly what they can do, but they have not nearly been all at their best. And you mentioned the former MVPs that are like at all-star level but not MVP level. Well, Justin Turner hitting 200 coming into this game, but yet having the 4-hit explosion, so the average is only going to be a little bit better than that. But obviously he can do well better than that, and is already showing what he can do just from this game alone. Not going to always face the Pirates in terms of the Pirates pitching staff. Will usually face better than Wilson, but still there's room to grow for the Dodgers, which is scary for the rest of baseball and kind of ridiculous when you do think about it. But fortunately for the Pirates and Pirate fans, after they deal with that afternoon game to figure out this series and if they could surprise and win a series against LA, regardless of who's on the mound or who's in the lineup, they then will have the Reds coming up. So it'll be a much easier time in those 4 games against Cincinnati, who the Pirates have clearly proven they are better than and can beat up on a Reds team with just a handful of victories overall in the year. So if there is a large pecking order in terms of the Dodgers to the Pirates, and there is that big gap Dodgers to Pirates, there's still Dodgers, Pirates, and then little down here, you can't see it on the screen with the Reds. So further down. So Pittsburgh maybe can stack some wins, even though, of course, it's hard to really worry about the wins this year. Unlike the Dodgers, though, who are definitely caring about the W's. That is all this season is about for LA. The Pirates do lose this one 11-1. They now have a 1-1 series split with LA and have a game tomorrow afternoon to decide this series. That was James Santelli there, formerly of KDK and other outlets. And I'm Mike Asti. So hit that subscribe button, comment below. We will fire back at you, and the Pirates will maybe have a chance to win this series against LA. So regardless of this trouncing, it is only 1 loss. The Pirates have experienced several really, really bad, embarrassing losses this year on that scoreboard with some football scores, but only 1 loss on the board is what this counts for. So maybe regrouping was still a chance to win the series.
Come back to that
LA tomorrow.
Come back to that Cubs series when they lost 21-0 but still took 3 out of 4 in the series.
But won the series. Yeah, and that is all anybody remembers from the series, by the way, as well. You talk to anybody about what went on that series. Oh, the Cubs just destroyed you. if you're the Pirates. But hey, not really. The Pirates actually won that series. But yeah, 3 out of 4, even though that was really, really bad. So that likely would be the scenario here when you do lose this bad. That is going to be what people remember. So it is your own fault when it happens. But who knows if the Pirates could make that not a factual domination if they do actually end up stealing this series against LA. So we will see. Afternoon game, the Pirates have a chance at this series despite the absolute beatdown they suffered